Gouging Fire might be getting banned from Gen 9 OU, folks, but why? What happened? Gouging Fire is one of my personal favorite new Pokemon released in the latest DLC. I made a whole video about the topic. It is pretty ridiculous looking, and I don't love its name, I'll be honest about that, but in terms of gameplay, I like its typing and all its different tools, and I felt that it was pretty reasonable compared to some of the more obnoxiously overpowered boost sweepers and wall breakers that we've seen so far in Gen 9. I thought it was more reasonable. Here are Gouging Fire's stats, and I mean, its attack is not that high by Gen 9 standards, its speed is also below average, its bulk is excellent, overall its stats are very solid, but I thought it had an exploitable typing, reasonable-ish stats, but public opinion seems to be shifting around Gouging Fire, and people aren't as fond of it as they once were. In the recent tiering survey, the majority of qualified players believe that some sort of action should be taken against Gouging Fire, and that's where we are today. A suspect test is underway, and you can vote if you like yourself, but this one is a bit more divisive than some of the other ones in the past. Gouging Fire has a lot going for it. It is an excellent choice band sweeper on Sun teams, benefiting from photosynthesis as well as Sun. Boosting its own stab types, it becomes a monstrous wall breaker in the Sun, but it is arguably even more effective as a more miscellaneous Dragon Dance sweeper with a pretty massive variety in its different sets. It can run certain items to defeat its counters, like Covert Cloak, which helps out against Garganical, Heavy Duty Boots to shield against rocks, Booster Energy to gain that photosynthesis boost a single time with a consumable item. Terastallization is also excellent on Gouging Fire, allowing it to turn the tables on would-be checks and allow free turns for Dragon Dance setup. Of course, Gouging Fire's natural typing is quite solid defensively with a lot of useful resistances and a burn immunity, but Terastallization can allow it to achieve new heights defensively, and I believe when the DLC metagame was still young, the most common was Terra Fairy. That's kind of the go-to defensive Terra type on boost sweepers because it's so solid generally. It has a lot of great resistances. It's at least neutral to most of the types that would otherwise be super effective against you, and notably it makes you immune to Dragon, which previously you would have been weak to. But things have been evolving. People realize that Garganical is quite an effective check against Gouging Fire with Salt, Cure, and Recovery, Bulk, Iron Defense, those kinds of things, so Gouging Fire started running Covert Cloak, which shields it from Salt, Cure, and other things like Scald Burn after you've already terastallized and lost your burn immunity. Those are two useful things that can help Gouging Fire still sweep. Gouging Fire also used to be really kept in check by Pokemon like Dondozo and Great Tusk, both of which can really defensively shut down Gouging Fire and also threaten to defeat it 1v1. But one big metagame development for Gouging Fire has been the rise of Breaking Swipe. This is a move that I didn't think much of when I first saw it, but this is actually a metagame development that allows Gouging Fire to defeat Pokemon like Dondozo and Great Tusk 1v1. Breaking Swipe is a simple 60 power dragon type attack that lowers the enemy's attack by one stage on hit, which allows you to shield yourself from incoming damage against a Gliscor Earthquake or a Great Tusk Headlong Rush, or crucially, Dondozo's Body Press or Waterfall, which would otherwise eventually 1v1 you. Gouging Fire's Terra types have evolved beyond simply just running Terra Fairy as well as the go-to. Terra Steel and Terra Poison have been particularly popular to help out against enemy Toxic, granting you immunity. Toxic is a common way to defeat Gouging Fire on Pokemon like Gliscor and Toxapex, but with a Terra type that grants you complete immunity, you have a ace up your sleeve in that matchup. Terra Ghost is another one you sometimes see, which helps out against Zamazenta, who would be able to defeat you 1v1 with Body Press. Now that's no longer possible. But on the other hand, a lot of counterplay is rising up to respond to a lot of this Gouging Fire adaptation, like Landorus Therian with Earth Power is one solid check to Gouging Fire. Primarina has been quite popular and is very nice against Gouging Fire typing-wise, resisting fire and also being immune to Dragon. Garganical sets using Curse can also sometimes beat Gouging Fire even if they have a Covert Cloak equipped, because you can outpace them with your own boosts. Some of these Terra types also leave Gouging Fire vulnerable. If you Terastallize Poison or Steel or Fairy, you are now vulnerable to a Scald Burn. Alamamola, who has been a rising star in OU this generation, can run a Chilling Water to actually give Gouging Fire a taste of its own medicine and lower its attack, and often win 1v1 with that. I've also seen some arguments that these adaptations from Gouging Fire are a good thing, and having some counterplay to the current stall structures with Dondozo and Boot Spam is a positive thing. Gouging Fire as a wall breaker is having a positive effect on the metagame maybe. While I can understand the frustration of playing against a Pokemon like this with such versatile options that can pick and choose its counters like this, once you suss out the information of the Gouging Fire set, you can develop a plan around it. After that, it does strain team building a bit because there's no one check to Gouging Fire. It requires different checks depending on its set, which can be a bit annoying and put a strain on team building. But I also don't think that this particular Pokemon is on the same level of game-ending brokenness as some other threats in Gen 9 that have been introduced and banned in the past. In fact, I think the way that the game is developing around Gouging Fire is quite interesting. There is a bit of a frustrating guessing game when you're playing against Gouging Fire, where one set is answered by this and the other set's answered by this, but I think that's really a symptom of terror existing in the game, because it's not just Gouging Fire where that's a problem. Against Pokemon like Kingambit and Dragonite, that's also true, right? Whatever happens here, it's in the hands of the players now, since a suspect is underway. I often disagree with the results of the suspect tests. I think that way back when, some action should have been taken on Terra, at least like reveal on Team Preview. I was a bit surprised to see that the majority of people voted for no action at all. I was also surprised that people voted against banning Kingambit back in the day. So, however the community views Gouging Fire, I'm not sure. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. A few suspects have resulted in no ban recently, like Kyurem. But some have resulted in bans, like Archaludon. Me personally, I would say no ban on this particular issue. At the same time, I'm not going to be going for the suspect requirements. I'm a bit washed in Gen 9 OU, I'll admit, so take my opinion with a grain of salt here. I'm not the most in practice. I've been keeping up, trying to stay informed, but in terms of actual gameplay, I'm not the greatest Gen 9 player. More of a Gen 3 gamer these days. Quick side note, folks, what the hell happened to Deoxys Speed? This guy fell down to UU. I thought this was a Pokemon that people were saying was too powerful for OU and they were stupid to even unban it. But here it is in UU. How did this happen? This is Deoxys Speed. This is a legendary. What's going on? It's all topsy-turvy. Nothing makes sense anymore. I remember the Pinkacross Deoxys Speed Hyper Offense team hit rank 1, didn't it? I guess that style of team has fallen off perhaps. The Hyper Offense has moved more towards balance. That does happen. This was a good screen setter in the past, but maybe screens is no longer a good style. Let me know what happened, folks. I haven't been keeping up in that regard regarding Deoxys Speed's viability. That's crazy to see. So, folks, if you're going for the suspect requirements this time around, what are you voting for? How do you feel about this particular issue? Let me know down below in the comments. And also, you may notice that there's a bit of a change of scenery, and I'm also wearing a jacket. It's because I'm in China right now. I've actually made some vlog videos, believe it or not. It's a bit of a departure from my usual style. Check that out on my second, or I suppose third channel, Jimothy's Journal, where I meet a famous monkey in the zoo and also eat some worms. It's a real adventure over there. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about next, and thank you for watching, as always.